So you're probably getting a bunch of mercenaries and asking yourself, what equipment, what do I want to level up for their abilities? How do I even live day to day without looking fantastic, which you always do. So don't even worry. If you missed the protector video, go back in the channel and look at it if you need help with that. But this will be the leveling guide for fighters for Hearthstone Mercenaries. If you find this helpful and you want to look for the casters, make sure you subscribe and you look fantastic. Let's do it. I'm a doctor! To mention as well, I haven't leveled all these characters up, but I'm just using my knowledge that I have of the game, of just researching and all that stuff to make sure you get the most educated decision. Just because I haven't leveled them doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. Enjoy. This one up is Blademaster Samaro, one of the best characters in the game, and it's quite literally impossible for me to tell you which ability I think is the best. But for me, Double Strike seems to be the one that has been the best, and I would recommend also doing the Burning Blade equipment to just make him that much stronger. Blademaster Samaro, you can't go wrong. Would highly recommend leveling him. Do think Mirror Image is a good ability, and upgrading it does make it extremely fast, and when you get the Sash of Illusion, it could be rather insane. But I think consistently Double Strike and Burning Blade have just been very good. Level this character up. He's very good. Mr. Diablo, the devil himself. I generally think that Diablo is in a weird circumstance because it really depends on what kind of comp you're running. I do think Fire Stomp is his best ability by far, so I'd highly recommend upgrading that first. Doom Charge is good. I think Apocalypse is definitely fine as well, but generally speaking, I think like Fire Stomp is his main ability that you want to use. And then when it comes down to his actual equipment, Black Soulstone is really good because you can make him even that much stronger. The Magma Horns I think are okay, but generally speaking, Apocalypse is not that great of an ability compared to Fire Stomp. Closet Arrows is also fine if you're thinking that you would just want that initial more speed reduction on, you know, obviously someone on the enemy side. But I think Black Soulstone is generally what you want to go for because it's that much better when you kill someone immediately, and then it makes Diablo even stronger. Illidan is my absolute boy. I love him. I can't recommend this enough for Illidan. Winged Assault all the way, followed by the Razor Fist. It's so easy for Illidan. Would highly recommend these two. Blade Dance and Outcast Attack are definitely fine, but this is like basically his entire kit is in Winged Assault and Razor Fist. So easy. Just those two. Crush is definitely a unique character in the sense that he is kind of revolving around beasts. So in a vacuum, I don't think King Crush is that great, but if you are making a beast composition, Terrify is definitely a really strong ability because basically speaking, it buffs your entire board, but it is kind of slow. I think Apex Predator is definitely the best one, even though I'm not a huge fan of Deathblow. And when it comes down to his equipment, Flaming Cause definitely seems like the best one to go for. Just getting passive attack is just really, really strong because, you know, you may not actually have the time to just summon a Devil Soar, or Fresh Meat gaining 1+ attack on your Terrify, which you may have to wait a whole turn for, may not be that good, even though you get more attack, obviously, the more you upgrade it. But I think Flaming Claws generally is just way better. Lady Anacondra is actually a powerhouse that a lot of people are not using. She's extremely good in a nature composition. Now, for, you know, upgrading, Serpent's Bite is the easy one. I think, generally speaking, Nightmare's Viper is not that great. I don't like it at all. Men Beast is definitely not that bad, but again, you don't really want to play her in a beast composition. You're basically using Anacondra for this, so definitely this one. Now, for the equipment, Toxic Venom is the easy one. I would probably recommend this one, but maybe if you're running some kind of beast composition, this one, but you don't need to upgrade it at all. And then we're not using this one at all. So it's always going to be Toxic Venom, upgrade Toxic Venom. I don't really want to talk about the Murlocs, but I will talk about them in this video. I'm going to say this right at the beginning. I don't think the Murloc composition is there yet. It needs a little bit more Murlocs in order for it to be good. But if you do feel like you want to upgrade them, I don't recommend really upgrading anything, but Scaly Taunt is not super great because you're playing a fighter. It's not only a protector. Devour is definitely not that bad, but again, you're only dependent on Murlocs, so it's always going to be devouring attack. You just make it faster. Yeah, I don't know. When it comes to equipment, Necklace is fine. I don't think Scaly Taunt is that relevant though. We have the Scales, which can be very good in a Murloc composition, so I definitely probably think this one is good. And then Earthen Armor is just a passive one where you just get stats, so we want the passive one. The stats are just better than relying on a Murloc to die, so Earthen Armor for sure. Boy, another Murloc, Old Murkai. Well, when you look at Old Murkai, Murkai has a really interesting kit because he does summon a lot of dudes. You could summon a Felfin, you could summon a Giant Fin, or you could attack an enemy and then another Murloc attacks it. But again, you don't really care because the problem is that you have to base this on Murlocs. Now, do I think that you should upgrade any of his abilities? Absolutely. I think that Fin Invasion is definitely okay. I think Felfin Navigator is fine, but again, it doesn't really make a difference because you need other Murlocs on board, and if they focus Old Murkai, it's just you're dead, like pretty much. So Fin Invasion is definitely my favorite because I think generally speaking, making a turn to just summon another Murloc is not going to be that fast. Even though Giant Fin does get to attack, it's generally just not going to be good enough. So I think Bubble Wand is what you want to go for, and then you want to upgrade it with Invasion. Again, I don't recommend upgrading Murlocs, but if you're looking for it, that's what I would go for. Rarran, again, this is a very demon-centered comp. You don't really want him into anything else because you want to make sure he's in a demon composition. Now, the question is, what actually helps you in a demon composition? Well, Hulking Overfiend is not that great. I would not recommend to upgrade this one first. Blitzing Legion definitely seems to be one of the better ones because you attack an enemy and you'll do damage to a random enemy, which can be very good if you control another demon, which is more than likely if you're going to be using them. Where Fell Command is you get attack and then it does this damage. And I think that one's actually really good. But again, it's on a cooldown. So I'd always recommend just upgrading Blitzing Legion. And then when we look at his equipment, Demonic Ashes with Hulking Overfiend, who cares? It's not that great. Soul Gem is definitely not that bad with Fell Command. But again, Demon's Mark is just too good. Like giving yourself +2 attack when you attack with a demon comp is fantastic. Would highly recommend this one over the other two. XR is a pretty easy one in my opinion. I think Explosive Shot is really strong, but it's not as good as Kill Command, and you're gonna put this into kind of a beast composition anyways most of the time you're using them, unless you want to go for the fire ability. So if you're gonna go for a fire comp, Explosive Shot is obviously better here, but Kill Command is his best ability by far. And then you want to upgrade Swift Feather Bow because it makes Kill Command faster, and you want to use this before a beast dies. So I'd highly recommend that you upgrade this if you're going for the Kill Command package. Rarran. Now Rarran is super cool in an orc composition, and she's quite good in PvP right now. So if you're thinking Rarran is bad, don't. She's actually pretty good. Now the question is, what do you upgrade, right? Tribal Warfare is definitely interesting. It makes it faster, and I think making the ability faster is definitely good. But then when we look at Offensive Rally, I mean, it's also pretty good, right? Giving an insane buff for every single time this attacks. But the thing is, this is pretty slow, and we don't care about this. Orc Onslaught, again, it's not that great because you're dependent on orcs, so we always go for Tribal Warfare. And then when we look at our equipment, let's be real here. We give her the one that gives her more attack, so it's probably going to be the Frostwolf Talesman all the way. Starfang is also an extremely good orc right now, and I would highly recommend you level him up because he is quite good in an orc composition with Garrosh and Rarran. But what do you want to upgrade when you look at this? Blade Hand Berserker is actually not that bad, and when you upgrade it, the stats become really frustrating, but it is on a cooldown. Attack an enemy is great. It will usually go after all of your orcs have attacked, and you can put this in a composition with like Thrall and Garrosh and make them extremely frustrating to deal with. Roland is also a really good ability, but I think generally speaking, you always go for the strike first. When we look at his equipment, this one is definitely not that bad. It's more damage on an AoE, but is that better than giving yourself more more stats on your guy? It's a very close call, and I think generally speaking, it is better. Shredded Shield is really good though. You're always going for Shredded Shield. I got you. I baited you 100% of the time. You always pick this one. More stats is just so good. It makes him just a better minion, and you want that. Go Sourfang. For Scabs Cutter Butter, you're in an interesting spot because Scabs has a lot of interesting abilities that you kind of have to work with a team comp. Now, if you think that you can get a faster ability than 4, then Tactical Strike is a great place to start. I do think Shadow Blade is the ability you want to upgrade first. The reason for this is because it goes down to a whopping, I think, 2 speed at its highest rank, which means you can attack, get stealth, and then you could use Wicked Stab after because they won't be able to target you or target you that turn, which is fantastic. He's almost guaranteed to live 1 extra turn. And then for your actual equipment, it's very interesting too. Contract's really good with Tactical Strike. Parrying Knife is fantastic with Wicked Stab because it's just more damage. And then Honing Rod is just giving +1 attack before you attack. Now, I think generally speaking, your main strategy with Scabs is to go Shadow Blade into Tactical Strike and then maybe Wicked Stab if you need to go over a taunt. So I would probably upgrade the SI Contract, but you could make the case for all of them. He's very weird. It's very dependent on what your comp looking like, but I hope this helps. Sylvanas Windrunner. This is probably one of the best heroes in the game when it comes down to PvP, and PvE is definitely fine. Now, when it comes to Sylvanas, I think the most important thing you have to ask is what team comp she's going in. Now, Banshee Bolt getting faster is a really big deal. I do think Reclaim Souls is very strong because you get +5 attack at its max rank, which can be rather insane, especially if she comes out later. And the For the Queen is definitely not bad. It does make it a faster ability, but I don't know. I think generally speaking, you want to raise her attack more or make her just hit harder. So I do like Reclaim Souls or Banshee's Bolt. You can make the decision on your own. Now, when it comes to an equipment, Mournblade is definitely good because it just helps out Banshee Bolt immediately. but Death's Volley can be rather insane. And I generally think that upgrading Death's Volley is your main thing because you want Sylvanas to get a lot of attack. If she gets focused, then she Death Volleys on all of them and you just do an insane amount of damage. For Tavish, it's very interesting. I'm going to start with his equipment first because I think that's going to be the bigger decider on what you should upgrade. And rigged wiring is very good. You get passive health, and normally your traps are just one turn and you have to hope someone hits you. But if they don't hit you, then rigged wiring is definitely just chilling. So I definitely think that this is the best one, so your traps live longer. When it comes to actually upgrading his abilities, I still think aim shot's the most important one until you get rigged wiring, because of the fact that, you know, it will do an insane amount of damage. But rigged wiring is very strong. If you don't want to go for the explosive trap and you just want Tavish to be a damage operator, then you could definitely just upgrade the high power rounds. But rigged wiring is it's pretty nice. Bordering is another great fighter to have in your arsenal. I would highly recommend you either upgrade Judgment of Humility or you upgrade it Blessing of Kings. I'm stupid and I thought Divine Assault was so good, but like getting the speed down to 7 is fine. You're never going to really proc the death blow ever in PvP, so I would not really recommend it. Where Judgment of Humility is fantastic. Blessing of Kings is also very strong, but I really like this. Now, for his equipment, it's very hard because actually all of his equipment is quite good. Ashbringer is insanely strong in the fact that you want to put out Tyrion first, let him die, and giving your everyone +8/+8 is really good with like Thrall or Sylvanas. So I really like Ashbringer. Tyrion Shield is definitely not that bad either because it's just passive health. So you could make the case for either, but I think Ashbringer will do fine because maybe you don't want to go all the way to task 7. But if you do, Tyrion Shield is quite good as well. Next is Tyrande. Now, Tyrande is a little bit interesting. I don't know how to say it. Tyrande. Let me know in the comments down below. But Tyrande is very interesting. Now, Elun's Grace can be very powerful because you play this and then your next ability, not only cast twice, but is just faster. So if you could do this with Arcane Shot, it can be bonkers, right? You can upgrade it with Millhouse potentially and just do an insane amount of damage. So I do like Elun's Grace, but generally speaking, for a lot of the abilities, until you get a lot of comps, Arcane Shot is probably your go-to. I don't think that this one is okay, but it's definitely not as good as Arcane Shot because you definitely want to focus one minion rather than 2 random ones. And then we go down to equipment. The Charm is definitely probably the best one because it upgrades this. You can actually get a lot of value from Band to the Wild, but you don't need to actually, upgrade it because it's at 4. And, Recurve's fine, but I think it's just always going to be Arcane Shot and Elun's Charm. Last but not least for fighters is Master Voon. Now, Voon is interesting because he kind of goes into a dragon comp, but that's okay. We don't really necessarily need him to be in a dragon comp for him to be good. Now, Fire Breath, I think, is the last one you want to upgrade because it's very dependent on having dragons. Evasive Worm is definitely not the worst one to upgrade because they can get actually pretty fat, and it does do a lot of damage. But I think it's always just going to be Axe Throw. Dealing 5 damage and 1 to its neighbors is pretty great. And then you don't want Dragon's Mark because, probably not going to be running dragons. The Claws, sure, give this thing Wind Fury, can be very good if you want to upgrade that one first. But, yeah, I don't think this one's good either. So we're probably just going to upgrade the Claws. Randomly speaking, I would not recommend playing Voon right now until dragons become a little bit better. But once dragons do, you can be very strong.